Welcome, Maria, Jocelyn, Charlotte. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. Hello from South Africa. Thank you for joining us. It's so lovely seeing where everybody is joining from all over the world. Happy Thursday, everybody. One more minute and we are going to get started so we can maximize the full hour and bring our special guest on. Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining, go ahead and let us know where you're coming from. From Toronto. We're in Toronto as well. Welcome, everybody. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just pause our music there. Always a bit of a quick cutoff. I do want to maximize our full hour today because I know we have a jam-packed webinar full of a lot of fabulous information. So I don't want to take up too much of our time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you are just joining, thank you so much. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining our webinar on how to reduce turnover at your childcare center. If you've never met me before, my name is Maddie, and I am your host of our Hi Mama Helps webinars. Quick announcement, if you didn't know, we're now doing some very exciting giveaways in our webinars. So every single person who is joining us live will automatically be entered for a chance to win a $50 gift card. So you can get new supplies for your center, for your classroom, whatever it may be. So we will be announcing the winner of the $50 gift card in the show notes email. So that will be coming out to you by early next week. So just keep an eye out for that show notes email. That is where we will announce the winner. And if you are the winner, we will also contact you personally, so you don't have to worry about getting in contact with us. As always, quick disclaimer before we get started. We just want to make sure everybody knows, especially if this is your first webinar with us, that the content we are sharing today is not personalized legal or financial advice. Okay, so the idea with the webinar today is to give you some really helpful tips, tricks, techniques, strategies for you to bring into your centers, into your classrooms, into your homes. If you are looking at making any big changes at your center, we do just want to make sure you are contacting the right people, such as a legal or a financial advisor. And we're now going to give a listen to our land acknowledgement.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word Takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
And we will now give a listen to our diversity and inclusion statement as well.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
And a few housekeeping pieces as well. As always, we are recording today's session. So if anything does come up, do not worry. The rest of the session will be recorded and we will be sending out the recording with the slides, your certificate as well, by early next week. We're also recording with the closed captions enabled. So if you do require the closed captions on for today's webinar, do be sure to hit that CC tab on your side of the Zoom so you can use those. In terms of the certificate, so as always, for everybody joining us live today, you will absolutely receive a certificate of participation. We will be getting those out to you by early next week. So no need to worry if you don't see it today or even tomorrow. I promise we are working on getting them out to everybody by early next week. And lastly, if you're having any issues at all with your Zoom, we certainly hope you do not, but if you do, we just want to make sure you're contacting the right people, which is the support team over at Zoom, and you can get in contact with them at support.zoom.us for some help. Okay, and a little bit about Hi Mama. If this is your first time at our webinars or you've never heard of Hi Mama before, welcome. I'm so glad you've made your way to us. Let us know in the chat. Is this your first webinar with us? Do you know much about Hi Mama? Maybe you're a Hi Mama customer. I love to see our Hi Mama family in the chat. Let us know. But if you didn't know, on top of our fabulous professional development community with podcasts and our weekly webinars, we are also a childcare management app. Hi Mama is an app designed for childcare centers to help you with all the operations at your childcare, from all your parent messaging, from your attendance, your billing and payments, your daily reports, documenting assessments and development. It's all available for you in Hi Mama to help you speed up all that admin and paperwork so you can focus on what matters most, which is, of course, caring for those children in your care. If you are interested in learning more about Hi Mama and see if it will help you at your center, please come take a look around. Lena will post a link in the chat so you can learn a little bit more about Hi Mama. And if you do join the Hi Mama family, I can absolutely promise you, or maybe you already are part of the Hi Mama family, but I can absolutely promise you that you will receive world-class support. I used to be over on our customer success team as well. And as always, I can say from firsthand experience, it is a fabulous group of humans waiting to help you out on the other side of the phone if you do go about making this transition at your center. Also, if you didn't know, beyond our webinars, we do have weekly podcasts that we put out, weekly articles, and we have an activity database as well to support you with over 400 lesson plans in there to help you and your educators at your center. And if you didn't know, we are also a B certified company. So, what that means is that as we work with our fabulous group of educators, we are also working to make a positive impact in the early childhood education space. And finally, your host. If you've never met me before, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. Again, my name is Maddie. I am your host of our Hi Mama Helps webinars. I'm also a customer advocacy specialist here at Hi Mama and one of the early childhood educators that we have here on the team. And of course, I have my fabulous co-host with me, Lena. Lena, welcome. What's going on with you today, Lena?
Hi everyone. My fun fact for today is that I'm currently fostering a cat and he's actually getting adopted this Saturday. So bittersweet moment because I'll miss him, but I'm very, very happy for him.
Oh, very bittersweet. I'm so glad that they found a home. Thanks, Lena. Okay, and last but absolutely not least, our special guest for today, CEO and founder of Inspire Care 360, Tony D'Agostino. Welcome, Tony. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, Maddie, and it's a pleasure to be back with you folks again. I always think I was back at the beginning of the year here, and I think Kaya was running it at that time, and I missed you because I think you were out a little bit under the weather, but it's great to be with you and Lena today.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited I get to be here on the webinar with you today. Tony, I'm going to go ahead and actually stop sharing my screen. I'm going to let you take it away.
Fantastic. So thank you all so very much. I really appreciate having me here with you today. I've presented a couple times, and I actually, as a, Hi Mama are friends of ours in the industry, but I have been to their corporate offices. I think the old ones, so I have to get invited to the new ones. Hear me out there, Ron. But they had great offices, great spirit, love the culture and the environment over at Hi Mama. So I'm a giant advocate for that. I was just presenting this past weekend on a separate topic, but I was really looking forward to this presentation. This is a challenge, just so you know a little bit about me, and I'll tell you a little bit more at the end of our presentation. But I also have some schools in Western New York. We're actually right across the pond from Toronto. So we're in Rochester, New York. And I have 3 schools there. I've had up to 6 schools, but I also am the founder and CEO of Inspire Care 360, which really is a business partner for all childcare schools throughout not only the nation in the US, but also helping out in Canada too. We haven't gone beyond that, so we're not in South America or Australia as of yet. But what we do is we provide a significant amount of recruiting slash retention and all kinds of support when it comes to your onboarding of staff, your development, and just the ongoing education of your teammates. So we'll talk a little bit more at the very end of this, but I just want to jump into this topic because I know all of us are really struggling with recruiting right now. So Tony, why aren't you talking about recruiting? We're talking about recruiting. Well, because I think turnover is really the key issue. With my previous life, before I owned and operated childcare businesses, I did spend a lot of time in the area of talent management from the recruiting side of it. I owned a job board down in Orlando, one of the very first ones in the country. I had a staffing company before in my previous life, a headhunting company for recruiting, also worked in benefits and area for adult learning development. So my whole world has really been about talent management, even before I got into the childcare business. So this is really talking about how do we really keep and engage our staff. So turning the tide on turnover and the 11 reasons as to how we address them. Jumping right in, we're going to be talking about what does turnover really mean? Why is it happening? And what can you do to stem it? I am going to be asking you a few questions, and if you can respond in the chat, Maddie's going to give me a few of those different chats and say, hey, listen, this is what people are saying. So I look forward to what you guys might be offering. So what is turnover? Harsh screen here. But at the end of the day, turnover occurs voluntary and involuntary. So voluntary turnover is when you have a staff member who chooses to leave and they have decided that it's time for them to move on, as well as involuntary is an individual who you have to dispatch or basically separate with as an owner operator of the school. And I'm oftentimes here talking to the owner operators, but I do know that there are teachers on here. I do know that there are some parents on here, but we're all trying to get to very best practices overall. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how do you really stem the turnover that really is effective to not only your staff, but at the end of the day, really about developing these amazing kids. So I do want, my first question I want to ask out there is between recruiting and retention, what is more expensive of an endeavor? So Maddie, if you could, as people put in either just put one word, recruiting or retention in your chat, what, if you want to see what starts to pop up and what's starting to trend,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from their point of view, what we see as sort of the theme.
Okay, so lots and lots of answers, and I'm trying to keep up, but it's looking like a 50-50 split. I'm seeing recruiting, retention, recruiting. So maybe recruiting, retention, recruiting. Thank
All
you.
right. That's awesome. So thank you for that one. So recruiting actually is much more expensive in the sense of the dollars it takes to recruit. Retention, to keep a person on board, is significantly less expensive, but the cost of turnover when you lose someone, you'll see in a few minutes how that's affected. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is when you look at how much effort it takes to recruit, and we're going through this now like crazy. We all know it's very difficult. I was on with my staff earlier today, but we all know that when you go through recruiting, there's a lot of effort. People show up, people do not, they say, oh, they're really interested, and then you just don't hear from them again. Or they're going to start on Monday, they don't show up. Or they do start on Monday, and by Wednesday, they decide this wasn't right for them. Okay, so we're going through a lot of those challenges right now. And so as an endeavor overall, recruiting and the effort around recruiting is probably the most taxing element. So if we were to spend energy on retaining, it's a lot less expensive for us. It's a lot less exhaustive to our energy level, the calories we burn in doing it, and the anxiety we have to have from it. So this presentation is really about what can we do to focus on retaining staff so we don't have to put so much cost and energy on recruiting, retaining the good ones that we bring in, and how to make sure that this isn't about the responsibility of an individual who's joined you to be a good one. It behooves us as owner operators that we provide a great environment for people to have a wonderful experience. So moving forward, the true cost of teacher turnover. Maddie, if you don't mind popping back on, I got another question for him. All right. When we look at the turnover cost, let me put it into terms of, if we thought it was, does it cost you for a turnover to have $3,000, $5,000, $8,000, or gosh, $10,000? What do you think of those numbers? 3,000, 5,000, 8,000, or 10,000? What do you think the cost of a turnover of a teacher is to your school? So Maddie, have at it.
All big numbers. Okay, the first I'm seeing is 7. I'm getting quite a few 10,000s popping in. I see Sarah in the chat just said 5,000, Pauline saying 10,000, 8,000, or Lisa saying 8,000. Linda says 5,000. So again, same as before, it looks like we're kind of all over the place. All big numbers though, all shocking, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And also scary too, right?
Yeah.
So the fact is though, we didn't see anybody who really said 3,000, and they're absolutely right, except the first number that we're going to put up here is separation cost, including substitute coverage, on average costs our schools about $3,000. Recruiting, screening, interviewing, hiring, background costs about $2,000. Now, a lot of you will say, well, wait a minute. I just hired someone. I didn't pay $2,000 for my Indeed ad. No, but we're also talking about the time it takes to bring someone in, the time it is for your director, administrators, your HR person, if you have one, just the full energy of going through these processes on average cost these dollars amount in childcare. Okay. The onboarding cost, this is the time it takes for your director to focus on the hiring and recruiting and making sure that when they come in that the person's oriented properly, that they're talking to maybe a mentor or other staff members and what they're going through to get up to speed. Then the cultural engagement, loss, team productivity. This is when we're talking about is when you have a staff member leave, quite often it has a significant effect on your other teammates. Your other teammates are questioning, why did Sarah leave? Why was it that Sarah decided to go? Well, she decided to go to another school and just left us behind. Maybe it's time for me to evaluate. It can really affect psychologically a lot of your staff there when someone leaves, and especially if that person has been around for a bit. The cost from HR, legal, that can absolutely be an additional cost. But really the biggest costs, this is where it really brings it big, is if you had someone who hasn't been there very long, yes, you won't have to really worry about this last one. But if you do have like a preschool teacher or a toddler teacher that is beloved, who leads, you can possibly lose enrollments. And if you think of every enrollment as I'm worth about $10,000 to a school, because it is expensive to put your kids through care, as we know. And so if you have families leave due to a turnover happening, that can add up to being a significant amount. So the cost of turnover is dramatic. So that's why we're talking about retention today. Where are employees' thoughts on this issue? 40% of employees have impulsively resigned at some point in their professional lives. I know from having my own schools, and one of the most disappointing things is we've had once or twice happen where at my Irondequoit location, for instance, one of them was that a teacher came in at break time and said, I'm going to break and I'm just not coming back. This isn't for me. And basically left kids with one of the floats in there. And we obviously were like, what the heck? This is crazy. No notice whatsoever. And that is part of today's culture. So when we look at only 33% of employees intend to remain in their current position, this is lower compared to the 47% who reported the same in 2019. So it has gone down for certain. But what that means is almost a third of your staff is considering moving on by this national survey through Achievers Workforce Institute. Then you look at 51% of workers are actively looking for job opportunities at any given time. That's a huge amount. This is really a systemic issue that affects all of us. So it's not just affecting your school. As a matter of fact, hopefully your school is better than most, but we're going to talk about ideas today. 64% of employees report thinking about quitting their jobs, of which 13% do so constantly. So the fact is there is really a momentum around it. And we know that last year, one of the things that sort of dropped my heart a bit is I was unfortunately listening to mainstream media when there was sort of this announcement about the Great Resignation. And it was almost promoting the idea that everybody should resign. And even if, and I speak to you teachers out there, administrators too, that, one of the first places you should go is always go talk to your leadership about what's important to you before you make that choice to resign. But just blindly resigning may not achieve your final goals either. But let's jump more into this. So what is a reasonable rate of turnover in childcare? Well, typically a reasonable rate is about 20% for average turnover across all industries. However, childcare is at 40%. And in some situations, since there's been COVID, that has been creeping up. I know that we work at Inspire Care 360 with one organization right now that has about 80 or 90 locations. And they're almost averaging about 70% turnover. Just imagine that 70% of their teachers are always leaving. How stressful is that on the kids? That's super difficult, and they're trying to solve it. So rates by tenure, this is a really important number. And what you'll see here, these numbers here, less than 1 year on average is about 45%. Okay. That's underneath 1 year. Levels 1 to 3 is about 20%. So 3 or greater is 8%. Now, I would typically ask this question in a poll, but I think it's, a question for Captain Obvious. And that is, what's the secret? Well, the secret here is investing in retention. Because if you can invest to retain the talent you've brought on, you drop from 45% all the way down to 8%. That's a huge drop. That is significant. And an 8% turnover, that is very manageable. That is lower than industry averages in general time. So if you see what this looks like, this really looks like if you can really engage your staff and get them to stay on board for more than 2 years, get them to that 3-year mark, you are really doing an amazing job, an absolutely amazing job of retention. So what is the cause of all this employee turnover? Well, there isn't just one. You're going to see there's a bunch of them. And I know that these are a little small as we pop it up, but lack of purpose. We have an industry, though, that's all about childcare, right? So there's a lot of purpose in our industry, okay? But there's a lot of people, even in our industry today, who sometimes don't understand and make the connection between what they're doing and what the outcome is for having amazing kids. That's a real challenge. Bad managers. This is one of those things that you come to find out that a lot of people do not want to be in an environment, and the world has changed. It has changed from not only 20 years ago, but just 5 years ago, of how people are willing to accept to be managed. We'll talk more about all of these issues. Being overworked. This is a huge issue that we deal with. More than half of workers say that they've been encouraged to work either after hours or more hours. One of the challenges we have, and we know all this too, is we have to be in ratio. We have to be there for the little ones. We have licensing that is really there to ensure that we're doing that. But the challenge is, we have a staff member who plans on going home at 4 o'clock today. However, as a director, you walk in and say, I'm sorry, but I need you to stay to 5 because so-and-so went out sick. That is really tough if you keep on going to the same people over and over again. They're really feeling challenged from that. Poor compensation. Now, we have an economy right now that I think we all see with this rapid growing inflation. This all puts our backs up against the wall. The inflation is going like crazy, which means that there needs to be a balance between how we compensate. However, the dollars that we compensate for in childcare come from our families. So what that means is we have to raise the price for our families to pay more for our teachers. Then we get into this very difficult balance of how do we make sure that teachers are being compensated fairly, yet we're not overcharging parents at all. And this is the thin ice that owner operators are really working with them, because the margins are very thin in the childcare business to start with. So really figuring out this formula is something of a challenge for all of us. No feedback. Quite often, many staff do not understand why things are happening in their schools. Toxic cultures, very difficult situations. You come in and people are dreading coming to work. They think it's a real difficult situation. And they know that there might be a person, or maybe there's a boss, someone there who they're really dreading the fact that they have to spend time with them. And if you think about it, our teammates come in every day and spend more time with all of us than they typically do with their family members. Okay, we're talking Monday through Friday. Oftentimes 8-hour days, some days are working longer days. So it's a real challenge for them if they're in a toxic environment. Boredom. One of the things that we have in our industry is oftentimes it could be considered a flat industry. Why is that? Because, well, there's an assistant teacher to a teacher, an assistant director to a director, and oftentimes there's not other roles there. So people don't sometimes see that their roles expand, or the opportunity for them to grow and for them to, themselves make more of what their career is can get stifled in our industry of ECE, childcare, Montessori, private schools. And that does lead to boredom. But there are ways to solve this too. Poor work-life balance. Here's another one that really, as you can see, this number is skyrocketing. Baby boomers to Gen Xers have certainly grown up with the mentality that you work long hours, you work hard hours, you don't get breaks, you don't have a lot of flexibility. Maybe you get 1, 2, possibly 3 weeks of vacation a year in other countries, but this is mainly in the States. It is something that those generations were used to. Well, with the millennial generations and Gen Zers that are coming about now, there's a totally different approach. There's a thought process of that they absolutely need more work-life balance. And a lot of that was reinforced during days that they had the pandemic, because at those point in times, they're at home a lot with their family and they're like, this is what life really should be. So we have to be cautious as owner operators not to consider the fact that life-work balance is super important to all of our staff, including yourselves. Recharging the batteries and the energy for yourself and paying yourself first is a huge deal and opportunity. No opportunity for growth or development. Again, we talked about those flat organizations. That is really a challenge. And then bad hiring procedures, and that means that we're maybe not bringing on the right candidate for the right fit for your culture. So when you look at this, there is a significant number of things that we have to manage through. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a number of ways now. So how do we fix this? Some of this still is a little bit more in the causality of it, but I'm also talking about in what's being caused. Also a little bit about is what is the ways that we could possibly look to solve it too. All right. So our first one, lack of employee purpose. Purpose starts with setting solid, agreeable, and achievable expectations. So what are expectations? At the end of the day, if you do not tell your staff what is expected of them, other than the fact that they need to manage the kids, they tend to have a lot of stress. Think about, staff and kids are awful lot alike, as you and I are. And the fact is that when you don't have any expectations for kids, what time they're going to go to bed at night, the fact that they're going to drink a full glass of Mountain Dew before they go to bed, or whatever your rules of your house may be when your kids are little, without expectations, it creates chaos for kids. Kids do not feel comfortable. It's the same way with adults. We all talk about embracing change, but at the end of the day, people love to say they embrace change, but it's oftentimes when they're presenting the change, not when they're receiving it. Even myself, who's pretty adept to not only embracing it, but consulting on change, I quite often find myself when I have to change something that I'm grumbling or I'm like, talking under my breath, why do I got to do this now? Change is difficult for people. So we have to realize that with our employees, feeling purpose, first and foremost, they have to understand why they're there, what they're doing, how are they helping push the mission of your school forward for what you're doing for the kids. That gets into the second one. What do they understand your goals and your objectives are? So if you're running and operating a school, of course, we're there to educate the kids. Of course, we're there to care for the kids. We're there to wipe their butts. We're there to feed them. We're there to provide them security. But realistically, what truly differentiates us in our schools? What is it, the goals and objectives that we're really trying to achieve? And why are we different in what we're trying to do? Do all your teachers know this? That's a very strong question that you should really evaluate is, do they know why they're there beyond the fact that they have a job and then they're punching the clock? These opportunities are for you to get some thoughts as to what can I do immediately to start turning that tide. In a high purpose industry like we are, yet oftentimes we commoditize the job role. So what does that mean? So we're a high purpose industry. We're there taking care of kids. It's different than building auto parts. Well, could be there's a lot of purpose in that too. You want very safe auto parts for people who are in cars, but at the end of the day, we're probably in one of the most purposeful jobs there is in childcare, obviously taking care of our little ones. Okay. But the fact is, if we just bring people in and they're only a toddler teacher, or they're only a school age teacher, or they're only doing UPK, quite often they don't see the bigger picture and they don't understand their purpose and they don't see the results of where the kids are progressing. Teachers need to be connected to the success of their children. That's very important. How do you demonstrate how your teachers are having those kids be successful? Do you have any level of engagement that's going on with your families where your families have an opportunity to give that kind of feedback? Oftentimes we do parent-teacher conferences, but quite often in parent-teacher conferences, we're telling parents, this is what to expect, this, and this. How often are we open to hearing parents' feedback about what we're doing well, but what we're not doing well? But being able to hear both what you're doing and well as what you're not doing well leads to getting to purpose, because then you start realizing what is important to those families and their little ones. And then does your staff member have a solid understanding of the company and their why? You know, Simon Sinek, I think, put out a book on, knowing your why, something similar to that, or starting with why, I believe it is. And quite often he has said, in that book is you need to really start with why. You have to know why you're doing what it is. So Maddie, this is a quick question. Well, it's not even a quick one, but I want to ask the question and have people, if they could, with a brief statement, what is your why you are in childcare? So if you can just give me a couple of those, Maddie, I would greatly appreciate it. And I think it will also help other people to see what their whys are. Why did they decide to get into this business? And what is it that they see that it helps contribute to?
Absolutely, Tony. Great question. Okay, I see the why. I love the difference we make in families' lives.
Love it.
It helps me make a difference in families' lives. Coming in again. Why? Helping children grow and develop, building strong relationships. And another one here, they're going quickly, to help children become productive members of society.
Wonderful. And I got a feeling those are going to be some of the main themes. The one thing I haven't heard in the four that you mentioned is it's about the kids, right? But I'd like you to think about expanding your why a little bit. I've had a licensor who came into my schools and said, Tony, this is all about the children. It's all about the children. I'm like, yeah, it is. But at the end of the day, though, it's about my staff. I need happy staff. I need great staff. And with that, I'm going to have happy kids. With that, we're going to then have happy parents. And then with that, I'm going to have a happy administrative team and I'm going to be a happy owner. It's an entire ecosystem. So consider your why being not just about taking care of the kids, taking care of your peers, taking care of the families, taking care of your admin team, and even taking care of the owners, because it should be reciprocal right back to you too. So the fact is that if you are an owner operator, it's your entire ecosystem of why you are in this, because you are providing, not only for the kids, but hopefully you're providing a career opportunity to these staff members, but you're also providing an opportunity to support those parents when they dreadfully have to be away for their kids. They don't want to be away. There's a lot of guilt in that. We all know that. Okay. So you're there to support those families too. But also there's a bit of pay yourself first, as they say, like, in an airplane, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on for a child, because if you didn't, you probably couldn't do it for the child and help them out. You need to also take care of yourself first. So it is not selfish at all for you to be part of your why. So please look at considering all the stakeholders, including yourself, as to why you're in this business, because it'll help you have a much more rounded approach. Poor compensation is the next one. Different states, provinces, everywhere around the world, there's different levels at times. Some places there are not, but overall minimum wage. You have to consider where you are, the kind of economy you're in, and then recognize that people need a certain amount of earnings to survive. The challenge, though, is when you have rapid inflation, you have oftentimes a situation that no matter how much you raise minimum wage, that inflation will keep up with it. The way I like to put it is you raise minimum wage and let's say you're using $7 and is what you were for your minimum wage. Typically, if you looked and went out at lunchtime, it costs about $7. Then you're up to $15 for minimum wage. Well, guess what? Lunch now costs about $15. So inflation tends to balance that out. The objective for you is to try to get ahead of it in a way that is something that is amiable for your staff to be encouraged to be with you, but also to be in a situation too where it doesn't blow your budgets out, where you can't run your operations. Also, there's lack of communication on how to earn more. So when we think about that, when a staff member comes in and you're hiring them right now, we've been in a situation where we're throwing a lot of dollars out for people that we don't know how good they are because it isn't been aligned to performance. And for that reason, what tends to happen? We get staff members who tend to get overpaid for not doing the work. But sometimes we get some great staff who are actually getting underpaid. But if you can start to look at when you bring people on, that you can align their performance towards what the value of the school is, towards what the values you are trying to achieve, to their compensation, you've now put yourself in a much better situation. What does this mean? So when staff come in and they, let's say that they're making, and I'll just use this because it's all over the place, but let's say just $10 an hour. And they're coming in at $10 an hour, and then they're there for 2 years and they're still a assistant teacher at $10 an hour. And they're like, okay, well, how do I get to, more than this? And they're like, well, you have an annual performance review. And you might not have had great expectations given to you. You might not have someone who even follows through to do that. So it might be very ad hoc, and it becomes very subjective too. So it's like, okay, I'm not the director's pet, so they're not going to give me this, but they're definitely treating someone else better. If you can think of non-subjective, but very objective ways that you can set up that if they achieve the kind of curriculum you're looking to get them to do, the code of conduct you're asking them to stand by, the core values you're asking for them to stand behind, the competencies in the program rooms that they're managing, as well as the compliance regulations, and then do they fit into your culture? I call that the 6 C's. But within those 6 C's, if you're able to look at individuals are meeting those, they're absolutely more valuable to them and they should be paid more. And that's something that you can have all of your teammates strive to, which is absolutely fantastic, in a way to allow your staff to have control what they get earned, because the more they meet goals and objectives, the further they can progress with you. Lack of alignment to performance is just what we've been talking about. Now, bonuses. There are those out there who have done bonuses. And I'd like to ask Maddie out there, who today offers bonuses and what type of bonuses do they offer?
Great question, Tony. Let's see what comes in. So go ahead and let us know in the chat if you offer any bonuses at your center and what kind.
And Maddie, just to add on to that, these could also be recruiting bonuses. It could be
interesting.
retention.
Okay, I see some performance bonuses. I'm curious to know if these are all monetary bonuses or if some are more, time off, events,
right.
RRSP contributions. That's really cool. I feel like that's probably a bit rare. 2% yearly income bonus during the holidays. Referral bonus. So $500 if they stay for 90 days. Cash bonuses.
Great.
So I'm seeming like lots of them are mainly monetary ones as well.
The great part is all of you who are on here today, look at what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. This is the way we're sharing this community. Great environment here at this Hi Mama webinar to see what others are doing. Now, I will say, when you look at bonuses, like recruiting bonuses, I recently made a change in my bonus structure for when we recruit, because I was like, why am I paying more for staff now who might not be as qualified as my existing staff? So what we did is we changed it. So instead of giving a big hiring bonus for someone who's brand new, what we're doing is we're going to give up to $400 to our staff for referring someone in. And they're going to get that when the person joins, as well as 6 months up to a year after, they'll get that $400, because we want to reward our existing staff for bringing the right teammates in. There's many different ways to do bonus, but the thing I want to tell you about compensation is be super careful. Be super careful of making your job only about compensation. And I am not a believer at all that you should have everything all depending on compensation. If you'll notice, what I'm talking about here is not about just paying more. It's about aligning performance to compensation, hiring based on how people perform, but making sure you reinvest in them and don't leave them on the sidelines. If you work only on compensation, you live or die by that. What do I mean by that? That means that it is very well possible that you will have people who come based on compensation, but they'll also leave you based on compensation, which could only be for another $1 an hour. And you don't want that situation. Being overwhelmed. Take our best team members, and what do we often do with our very best team members? We give them more to do. As I sometimes have said to staff in the past about myself is, watch out. I go, you think I'll ask for a figure, but I'll take an entire arm, because when I see people who do well, I give them more and more responsibility, and I have to be very careful. We all have to be very careful. So our best team members show up on time. They do what you ask. They try to please. They try to work hard. And what do? We overload that person with tasks. The person usually does not say no. Okay. And then someone else is apathetic. We give responsibility to our performer. So we have an individual who could care less. And so we take the responsibility away from them and give it to someone who performs. Compensation probably doesn't change with it. And then you have people that were overwhelming, and then all of a sudden they're overwhelmed, they're overworked, they want to leave. You can take action by ensuring that you do not overtask someone, and check in with them very often. Check in to make sure that other people aren't giving them tasks that are outside of your processes and procedures. Bad managers, toxic employees. Most of our staff comes from the teacher ranks. That's typically where they start, and then we'll get into administrative ranks or senior roles, what have you. Whether internal or external hires have limited or no leadership skills. So here's part of the challenges is we bring a lot of people in who love to spend time around kids, who are wonderful with kids, but then all of a sudden they've done well and we put them in charge of other staff members, but they haven't had real strong leadership development training. So what they know to do is tell the other person what they should be doing, because that's the way they've always done it. Well, I think we all know how it feels to be told what to do. When you tell people what to do, they're not always thrilled with being told. They're like, they want to be engaged. They want to understand why. And when you start thinking more about what does leadership mean? Leadership means asking questions. Leadership means empowerment and accountability as to a manager who tells people what to do. Or as they say, treat them like a mushroom. Keep it really dark and feed them a lot of doo-doo, we'll call it. All right. So any type of staff that do not align with your culture, your values and your culture are huge to recruitment and retention, but especially retention. If you do not have values that you stand by, or you talk about them and then you do not abide by them as a leader, you're going to quickly find out that your staff are not going to abide by them, and then you're going to lack culture. And this develops the opportunity to get toxic individuals who are there doing things against it. Maybe it's the kind of thing where you have an individual who constantly shows up late, constantly calls out sick, constantly gets everybody raveled up with gossip. Those kind of people can become extremely toxic, but they have to be addressed immediately. They are obviously not sharing your values, and if not immediately addressed, what do the other team members think? They start feeling like, well, that's something that's encouraged. So you have to be super cautious about this. We're in a really tough business here because we have ratios that we must stay in. So you hear the adage of hire slowly, fire quickly. But the challenge is we can't really do that because we have ratios. However, if you do have a toxic individual, sometimes you have to take a deep breath and say, we do need to separate from them, even if you don't have a replacement. As difficult as it is, because what you're doing to everybody else in your ecosystem, from the staff to the families, but also to your kids, is damaging. So you have to look at addressing those toxic individuals. And that's something I recommend to all of you today, that if you have individuals in there, they're usually not happy. They don't feel aligned. They don't feel like they're part of the solution. And there's one last thing, especially if you're an owner operator, you may be part of the problem. You may not realize it, but you very well could be part of the toxic situation there. You can have people working against one another. It's possible that you have a leader who might be managing up to you and giving you everything you need and you think everything's fine, but treating your staff horribly. And in turn, they're not happy. And they also think that you're the one who's putting it on. Also, as a leader, you might be putting yourself in a situation where you are poorly compensating, or you are not sticking by the values, or you're saying one thing and doing another thing. It's important for you to have very honest conversations with yourself, but also with your leadership and staff to say is, what is it that I am doing that I can do better? There is a program called a 360-degree. And what that is you take a look and you actually do a survey of all your staff and families anonymously and tell them to tell you what you could do better. That's tough. That's tough for people to get that feedback. But I will tell you, in the end, you will only grow from it. And people will appreciate the fact that you're asking for honest feedback. Little or no recognition. Do you understand what it is to be important to different team members? In other words, to each of your team members, what is important to that individual? Not just to the group, but what's important to the individual. Recognition is basically meaningless. It is meaningless recognition, and it can oftentimes be negative if you don't identify what does recognition really mean to the individuals in your group. Are you going through the routine? So what do I mean by this? So oftentimes we say, well, yeah, we're going to have an employee of the month. You have an employee of the month and you go through a rotation and everybody is becoming employee of the month because they're getting their turn. What's the value of that? Well, let's say that Tom is one of your teachers and Tom comes in late. Tom is a little surly when it comes to when he is talking to other people. He's not exactly being very polite or nice. Tom is a little harsh around the edges. And in turn, you're making him employee of the month because it's his turn for June to be employee of the month. What does that say to all the other teachers? That employee of the month is absolutely no value because it doesn't mean anything. Can you make someone employee of the month multiple years or months? Absolutely. If they are demonstrated. Can you skip out on it and say that someone didn't earn it? Absolutely. It's about being authentic. Recognition is truly needing to be about authentic. So focus on what's important to that individual. What audience do they want recognition in front of too? Is it important that they're getting recognition in front of their peers, the other staff members? Is it important that they get recognition in front of their families? Because the families is really their audience quite often, or even the kids. How wonderful is it to come in and bring in a little cake and celebrate for one of your teachers that authentically earned Teacher of the Month and celebrate in front of all their kids? Catching people doing things good, the unexpected recognition is huge. Just think about it when someone walks by and says, I've been sort of watching what you're doing and I'm really impressed with what you've been doing. When you think about the compensation thing, recognition is very inexpensive, but goes a tremendous way if it's authentic. So really think about what is the value of recognition. And when I say do not spread the peanut butter evenly, my little cliche here is, again, sort of with employee of the month, if you keep on giving everybody the same level of recognition, you in turn are doing it wrong. You have to look at how can you do it right by giving the right person the recognition in front of the right audience and what recognition that means to them. Then looking at work-life balance. School schedules dominate. Scheduling is the secret sauce. But if you're giving little notice to scheduling changes, if you look at the team and you're only looking at your staff only as cogs to make your school work, and not that they're all individuals that have families at home. A lot of them have kids. There's kids who have appointments. There's all kinds of things that are going on today that need different levels of flexibility. You really need to look at what are those opportunities. So not establishing protocols for how to take time off that are highly subjective, that you basically have to kiss the butt of the director to get the time off you need, and other people don't have to do that as much because they can make last minute decisions. But if you have strong expectations as to how to set time off, how to request things, how to make sure that you're not changing the schedule willy-nilly, that people all of a sudden are put into a pinch with their home life, and you really work with your staff. You're going to come finding that that extra energy that you're spending there is going to come back to you in spades. It's going to be amazing how much it helps you out. Understanding what work-life balance means to everybody. In other words, you don't want to just assume that everybody wants to spend time with their family. There's some people who are like, well, I don't want to spend any time with my family. I'd rather spend time here at work, or I'd like to do some other things. So really having a chance to talk with each one of your staff members. And then flexibility. Flexibility is huge. Millennial, Gen Zers, this is a big thing these days. So looking at the elements, and I know we have a lot of people who are like, everybody wants to get out by 4 o'clock, and nobody wants to work between 4 and 6. Well, maybe there's an opportunity for incentives to work the different kind of hours. Maybe there's an opportunity to work shorter days, but they might work a few more days, or they might work longer days, 10-hour days, but they're not going to work the entire week, so they can have a Friday off or a Monday off. There's definitely opportunities to look at flexibility, and we absolutely must look at these days. Boredom. Okay. Well, hopefully no one's getting bored with this presentation. I certainly hope you're not, but within there, our schools are much more than they are at home. So what does that mean? This means that if your staff are not engaged, they're just sitting there looking at the clock. How many times when you were in school or you were any place and you're just watching the clock and just watching it tick away? If that is happening with your staff because they don't feel engaged, quite often they don't feel empowered. Quite often they feel like they are, again, are just a cog in the machine. They are just a pawn on the chessboard. There's someone who's there to help you out, but are you there to help them out? So you really have to think about, how do we truly engage those teammates so they get connected to our vision, our mission, our values? How do they get connected to the other teammates and like, I want to come in and get excited about it? What are their passions? What are their goals? Is there things that they have that they can be creative at? What is their superpower? I'm a huge believer that everybody has a superpower. Okay. We don't know what they are oftentimes. Yeah, mine I thought was invisibility, actually isn't. No, my superpower I do think is I get a chance to read people. I sort of read people rather well up front. But there's other places that have a lot of blind spots, but there's a lot of people that I know that I work with that can be super creative, but other ones who can be really analytical. And as I start looking at the different individuals, I start finding out what's important to them and what do they really like to do. And is there a way to connect their passion with what we do at work? Truly think about that. Truly think about, how do I do that for my individuals? As we go through this, you start going, wow, Tony, there's a lot of information here, and you're all going to get the copy of this deck. But again, when we start talking about where is the most expensive element, you guys all said it, it was with recruiting the majority. Okay, we're talking about retention. These are the investments that you need to make to get over that hump. Do people feel, this is a huge one though, but the last one here, do you feel that people are part of the team? Do they feel like they belong? Belonging is probably the number one reason why people stay or people go. Think about belonging. Belonging quite often is, are you part of a gang? Are you part of a fraternity? Are you part of a club? Yeah, even a gang. But people feel like they have purpose when they belong. So when we look at, there's no opportunities for growth, limited roles for teachers, what is there? Is there upward mobility? There is. You can look at here, and again, you'll get this so you don't have to go scribbling this down. There's no reason you cannot create all different levels of growth, and each growth can have additional responsibilities, additional pay, but it adds more value to your school as they progress. So you can create different levels within your organization. Poor hiring. So they say hire slowly, fire quickly. Well, it's very difficult in our industry, but bad hires and times of desperation and need, it is tough. We let our guard down at times. We sometimes just are looking for someone who could, as they say, fog a mirror, someone who just has a beating heart. Well, we cannot do this when it comes to our kids. We can't do this to our other teammates. This is what we have to depend on. We do have to stick by very thorough processes of why we hire, why we invest the time, doing multiple interviews, getting them to tell stories to us as to why and what they would do to handle situations as to just what their education is. Have they done it before? What would they do in this situation? Have them tell you stories about what they've done and why they've done it that way. It's the quickest way to get through good interviews. And truly observe when they do go in the classroom. Make sure that if there's another teacher in there, that they are completely observed. Then we have the challenge of bricks and mortar. Out of COVID came the desire to work from home when everybody was at home. And the challenge is our staff, we're a bricks and mortar business. We simply are. We really don't have a resolution for that to not be a bricks and mortar business today. So unfortunately, we can't offer that unlimited flexibility. But if you can start looking at how do I give flexibility to those staff members that we have, then we do not make it too regimented if it's something where they do need flexibility. If we can, if we lack the value of that camaraderie with the teammates, they don't feel like they belong. So how do we get them connected with other teammates so they know that they want to come there, that you're not in that toxic environment? Seeking these, how do you get to create with your scheduling that level of flexibility, the opportunity to really drive home and relook at all of the different policies that might be dinosaurs in your business today? So in summary, what we have, it is critical to engage your staff, to know who each person is, their hopes, their dreams, the timings. Is this just a waypoint for them, or are they going to be here for the long run? Do you really know that yet? To go well beyond compensation to provide a fulfilling job experience, much more difficult than before. However, if you establish some key foundation around communication with purpose, their values, what you appreciate and what you want to recognize and what's important for you to recognize for them, eliminate those toxic team members, management, and change your own behaviors if needed. Focus on your values in recruitment, performance management, and rewards, and build a career ladder for your team that empowers them, makes them accountable by having the different job levels we were starting to talk about. Do not go through the motions. Take inventory of what's been working and what isn't. And at the end of the day, you will find that you are going to significantly increase your retention. And if you can get those people to that 3-year mark, you've pretty much won the game, because then you get to that really low turnover. So we're coming towards the conclusion of time that I have here, but I wanted to mention a couple things. One of the things that they're going to push out, this is a little bit about Inspire Care 360. By the way, we do have a conference that is going to be announced. And if you are just interested in finding out about the conference that we have for childcare owners, this is an owner conference. It's an exclusive conference for ECE owners, and it's going to let ideas, and it's going to be in November in sunny South Florida, near Sanibel Island and Captiva, right now, November 3rd through the 5th. It is a save the date. This URL, I'm asking Lena that if you can send this out, this IC3 or Inspire Care 360 /Spark 2022, just to say, hey, I'd love to learn about that. I'd love to know more. It's a real opportunity for you to know that we're going to be there about building leaders, developing culture, focusing on creating profitability, insights on your business. It's going to be more of like an intimate event there. We are doing a giveaway today. So with this giveaway, what we're offering, since you attended this webinar, and there's a URL that'll be pushed out, and at the end of it, it says Hi Mama 051922, which is today's date. So Inspire Care 360. But what we have as part of Inspire Care 360, we offer a solution called IC360 Rep. IC360 Rep was really meant to be a star rating tool that you can solicit to your existing families star ratings. And you have an opportunity to not only go out there and have those star ratings put on Google or Facebook or on care.com or Great Schools or Yelp or what have you, but it's for families mainly. But what we did is we configured it in a way that it's also for your teachers. And this is a great opportunity to use this tool to get star ratings from your teachers. If you get a 4 or 5-star rating, you can have it sent directly to like Indeed or to Glassdoor, and they can put up the ratings. If you get a 3 or under star rating, it actually sends it to you, to leadership, to have you be able to address it. It doesn't get published out there. Okay, that gives you the opportunity to work on fixing issues with your staff. This is a huge tool. The value of this is at $150 a month. What we're going to do is we are giving away for these 3 different licenses for 2 months. So it's a 2-month license for it for IC360 Rep, no strings attached. After those 2 months of doing it, you do not need to do anything more. You do not need to give us any money or anything. So if you want to click on that URL and see if you go to win the raffle, it's up to 3 of these, and we may even do 4. So with that said, the last part of it is just to tell you about who Inspire Care 360 is. And what we are is we focus in the world of supporting your childcare schools with you being an extension of your team. We have a full onboarding and training program, from orientations to your handbooks for your families and staff that are personalized to you, to being able to have you deliver your own content, as well as the fact that we have almost 100 hours of professional growth content by the end of this year. We have a healthcare plan that is second to none in the industry, really, that is very flexible, super affordable, and it's something that really is a game changer in the industry, as well as brand assessments, digital marketing, and reputation support, as well as optimizing your profitability through financial experts coaching, and then a comprehensive savings program on supplies and what have you. So that is Inspire Care 360. And Maddie, I'll bring you back on because I know that I've come right to our time.
Thank you so much, Tony. That was fabulous. If I can echo the audience here at all, it's that we need a part 2, and this was just not enough time. Everyone wanted you to keep going. So thank you so much. I am just going to take over the screen share, if you don't mind, here.
Please do so. And thank you for having me.
Of course. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being here with us. That was amazing. I am going to quickly go ahead, as always, everybody, and just launch our quick poll. What we want to know from everyone in the audience today is, what does your center do to support and retain staff? And we're also curious to know if you're interested in learning about how Hi Mama can help your staff feel supported and reduce turnover at your center, saving your staff time, helping them find a community of educators. We can support your staff with that here at Hi Mama. So let us know if you'd like to learn more. Tony, before I let you go, I know we are at time, everybody. So for anyone who did have questions today, Lena has been posting some links in the chat for how you can get in contact with Inspire Care 360, and we will send out some contact information in our show notes email as well. But Tony, before we let you get on with your day, I just wanted to say a big thank you for being here with us. That was a fabulous presentation, and we really look forward to working with you again. Thank you so much, Tony.
Much for having me.
Take care. Before we wrap up, everybody, thank you for joining us. Quick reminder, keep an eye out for that show notes email where we will be announcing the winner of our $50 giveaway. So you can get some new materials for your classroom, for your center, whatever it may be. Keep an eye out for that show notes email. We will be announcing the winner there. And in terms of what's next, so again, I did see some questions come through about the certificate. We will be sending the certificate out to you by early next week. So just keep an eye out for that email. We will also be sending today's recording with the slides to you by early next week. So again, in regards to that certificate and the show notes email, don't worry if you don't see it today or even tomorrow. I promise we are working on getting it out to you by early next week. In regards to next week, same time, same place. Thursday afternoon, 2:00 Eastern Standard Time, we will be here, and we're talking about the first step to advocating for early childhood education. So if you have been passionate about getting involved with advocacy for early childhood, please join us. If you don't know where to start, that is what we will be talking about. So I certainly hope to see you all next week. Otherwise, thank you so much to all of you for being here with us today and taking time out of your busy Thursdays. I hope you all have a fabulous week, and I hope to see you all again. Take care, everybody.